Welcome back to the Malt Miller YouTube channel, and I am delighted today because we are taking things right back to basics. We're brewing 3-vessel, one of our favourite recipes, which is Verdant Lightbulb. How did you start brewing, James?
Well, Rob, I began with extract. I did a few extract kits and then I moved on to mini mash. And then I made the leap to a system very similar to what we've got in front of us today, which was a kind of beginner's version of 3-vessel, gravity fed system. So what we've got on the table in front of us here is ultimately 2 tanks for heating and an insulated mash tun, okay? Now, I used a cool box. I think you did at one point as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great way to build your own mash tun because it's insulated, can get different size capacities, and you can put the lid on, leave it, and it will hold the temperature nice and steady for you throughout that mash period. And then I had a plastic bucket with an element in as a HLT, which is our tank over on this side. And then I had a stainless steel kettle. Actually, it was on a gas burner stove, which again, I think is something that you did to begin with. But we are going to be using today another one of our plastic boilers this time with a stainless steel tap on and another one of our 2.4 kilowatt elements. So this is, like I said, real kind of back to basics, 3-vessel brewing, and you can learn a huge amount about the brewing process using this method.
Back in the day, we used to put a copper manifold in the cool box. Actually, we don't need to do that now because we've got a bag, so it's even simpler to convert a cool box.
Yeah.
£20 from Argos,
yes,
I believe.
Yeah.
So we have gone really as basic as we can. Put the grain bag inside so that we can separate the grain from the liquor. We're away.
Yeah, the one thing we did do to convert this is we've added one of our black taps to the front.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things you need to note with that when you're converting this. Now, all of these sort of insulated cool boxes have got like 2 skins on them. They've got the outer skin, a layer of insulation, and then the inner wall as well. So actually what we did is we drilled a pilot hole through all the way after we'd located exactly where we wanted our tap to be.
Yeah.
We then used a 28 mil paddle blade.
Yeah, like a spade bit for wood normally,
to go through the outer wall, making sure that we don't go too far and go through into the inner wall. We then took out the insulation and then used the smaller 26 mil piece to go through the inner wall, which meant that we could secure our tap nice and tight to the layer that is actually the inner wall, so we can get that seal.
Exactly that. The more expensive versions of this, and they do go up to really quite expensive cool boxes, the better the insulation is and the tougher the 2 skins of plastic are. On the cheaper ones, there's absolutely no chance that you could go through both skins and do a little channel between them. No chance. You've got to just rely on the inner skin for the brace in the tap.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's our setup. As I said, we've got 2.4 kilowatt elements in both of the tanks. So we're going to move on now to getting this all set up, and then we will talk you through the recipe we're going to be brewing today, which is our clone of Verdant's Lightbulb. But before we get too far into our brew day, we've got a very special announcement that goes along with this video. Rob, what are we doing?
We're giving this complete system away, including the fermenter. We are so passionate about bringing brewers on. Perhaps they've been brewing kits. This is a step into all grain brewing. We're giving the whole system away.
It's absolutely fantastic, and there will be a few terms and conditions, so you need to stick around until the end of the video to find out everything that you need to do to make sure that you're in with a chance of winning this setup. So make sure that you are subscribed to our channel, you have hit the bell for notifications so you can stay up to date with everything we're doing here at the Malt Miller. And without further ado, let's crack on with brew day. Let's talk a bit about the recipe then that we're going to be brewing today, Rob. We're going to be brewing our clone of Verdant Lightbulb, right? It's a beer that we both absolutely adore.
Fresh, crispy, chock full of hops. Absolutely love it.
Yes, it's a really interesting beer as well because you know, you associate Verdant with loads and loads of hops going into their beers. Actually, there is a lot of hops in this, but it's not maybe as much as you would think.
Yeah.
But the combination, which is Simcoe and Centennial, works absolutely wonderfully. And then the grist, it makes a beer at the end that is really light in appearance, you know, nice sort of like bright, almost yellow hue to it, much like a 100-watt light bulb, which is where the name for the beer came from. And it's got quite a bit of oats in there as well, which means that you do get a nice body to it, but it is lighter in body than some of the heavier IPAs that you might drink. So it's a perfect session beer, and it stacks up against some of those stronger, bigger IPAs.
Relatively easy brew to put together, much more difficult to package successfully.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk about fermentation vessel when we get to that point in the video, so make sure you stick around. Now, you're probably thinking, well, this is a gravity system, right? And none of this is set up to actually feed in that way. That's only because, actually, if I put this up any higher, you can't see me. So we've got a handy little resource here, which is another bucket that we're going to stand our HLT on. Now, if you had this system set up at home, you would probably have some form of more permanent setup or something a little bit more stable, right?
Actually, homebrewers are such a canny bunch that there is always one way or means of fabricating like a 3-vessel system. Personally, I've used chairs, I've used footstools, I've used a whole manner of different things to be able to put together a three vessel gravity fed system. It's part of what homebrewers do, so it's going to be part of what we're doing today in this video.
Exactly. So the first thing we're going to do is get hot water ready for both our sparge, which is going to be in our HLT, and also for our strike water, which is going into the mash tun. All right. Now, we will be moving this out of the way when we come to doning, because we want to talk to you about what we're doing. But as we've already said, in your setup, you might have something that's a little bit more permanent in terms of its position. All right. Rob, that is all of our strike water transferred from our HLT, moved into the mash tun. Now, what we did is we actually heated our entire water volume, didn't we, in the HLT? Why did we do that?
It's actually quite important because of the water treatment chemicals. We want to treat the entirety of the liquor that we're going to be using for the brew, not just what we've used for the strike.
Yeah, it does make it far simpler when you're calculating that stuff to just do one batch rather than having to split it into two.
Exactly that.
Now, we have used our calculator on the website to work out our volumes for our liquids. We have 17.5 litres of liquor in our mash tun ready for our grain. We're going to use about 16.5 litres for the sparge when we get to that. So we're looking at around about 33-ish litres total.
In volume,
yeah. Now we're looking to brew a 23-litre batch at the end of this. We'll lose some to grain, boil off, all that kind of stuff, a little bit of dead space. The next thing is actually to get our grain bag in and start doughing in.
Yeah, don't forget the advice is to preheat the mash tun as well.
Yeah.
So you can do that any way you wish. We a kettle full of nearly boiling water, lid on, leave it for a couple of minutes, ditch the water out.
Yeah, it just
nicely.
helps with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, to note, we heated our strike water to 75 degrees. Now, it is very cold in our warehouse. Now, we're aiming for a mash temperature of around 67 degrees. So we've heated it higher than that because the grain is a lot colder.
Yeah.
We're going to lose some of that temperature when we dough in.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if our calculations are correct, we'll come in at that 67 degrees that we're aiming for.
We will make beer, James.
Right, first things first, we need to add our grain bag. Rob, if you can pop that in.
There we go.
And as we've said, we're using a grain bag so that we don't need to add some form of manifold or filter to the inside. And actually, when we get to the very end of the brew, we can lift the grain out so that the last drips can really go through. Now, this is one of our bespoke recipe kits. Comes in 2 bags, everything weighed out, crushed to order, so that you know that you can dough in on brew day completely hassle-free, right?
Right, let's just give that a bit of a stir while James is opening his bag.
I love this smell. Never gets old, does it?
Nope.
Right, shall I go in with mine?
Yep.
Now, we're obviously brewing together today. This is always something that you can enjoy with friends, but this method is so straightforward that you can do it easily by yourself as well. Right, so we're all doughed in now, Rob. We are just taking a temperature reading to see how well our calculations have come in, and I mean, I'm pretty impressed with that, aren't you?
We're at 66, James.
Yeah, well, actually, nearly 66 and a half.
We are indeed.
What's really important now, though, is that we get the lid on, right? Because we want to keep as much of that heat in there, and we're going to set a 60-minute timer, and we'll see you shortly.
James, we're at the end of our mash period. Actually, we've been taking some temperatures in here. It's performed for a £20 converted cool box.
Yep.
Wow, it's actually done really well.
It has, and it is very, very cold at the moment. I think outside right now it is 4 degrees, so it's not going to be that much more in the warehouse right now.
It's definitely a chilly boy. So we've just taken the temperature of this, and as with all passive mash tuns, there's various different temperatures that you take it around. The highest temperature that I have read in here is 65, and the lowest is just under 64. So like a couple of degrees lost over
an hour.
An hour is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
And yes, we are going to make beer.
Yes, we are. So next up, what we're going to do, we're going to take off
the lid. We'll pop that there. And actually, for me, this is quite an important part of the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow some. We want a clear run-ins into the boiler. So what I'm going to do is drain as much as it takes out of here, pour it back into the top, keep on going so we can really create a nice filter bed using the grain, and then we are gonna start emptying from here into our boil kettle at the same time as sparging.
Excellent.
From our HLT.
And we've had the HLT heating up. We're at 76-ish degrees in there, because I know we're going to lose a little bit throughout the sparging process in terms of the temperature. And there's no like real science or method to this, is there? We are literally just draining off some of the wort, pouring it back through until we start to, like you say, get that really nice sort of clearer looking wort in the jug that you're collecting in. Exactly that.
So one thing you'll notice with this method, and what can happen, is that the bag gets caught up on the inside of the tap. We can solve this really easily by just sliding the
mash paddle.
Yeah, that's it.
And that just stops the fabric getting pulled into the channel for the tap, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, no, it works really well, and it's actually not interrupted our clearing process. And actually we can leave it there for the whole time that we are sparging as well. One thing that starting brewing all grain using this type of method is it really teaches you that there are problems that you do encounter during a brew day, and this process really teaches you how to get around those problems.
Yeah, and it's all about those innovations that you come up with as a brewer, right?
Exactly.
Now, if you wanted to, you could fit some kind of filter onto this, but actually what we've done here is super simple. Doesn't cost anything because you'll already have a mash paddle.
Yeah.
And the process, the result at the end of the process is exactly the same.
Right, so I've now drained about 8 litres out of the mash, and now I am happy that that's about as clear as it's going to get.
Yep. One big benefit of using the grain bag as well is because the mesh of the grain bag's quite fine, you're not going to get any grain coming through at all.
None at all.
Nice.
So we can now happy to start draining this off into our boil kettle.
Making sure the tap on our boil kettle is turned off, because we've all made that mistake before.
Yes, we have.
And we want to let this drain through a fair bit, don't we, before we start sparging, because we want that grain bed to kind of lock in place a little bit.
Yeah, just remind us, how many litres of water did we have in here?
So there's about 17.5 litres in here. We're going to be sparging with about 16 and a half litres. We're aiming for a 23 litre batch after the boil, so we're probably going to want to collect about 25 litres in total.
Right, okay, so when this gets up to about 10 litres, say, we want to start our sparge.
Yeah, nice.
We've now collected about 10 litres. James, can you plug in our boil kettle? The element's covered, so that we know we can start heating that. We can start doing that just before we start sparging.
Yeah, I can do that for you, Rob, no worries. Okay, I can hear that the elements come on, so we are good to start our sparge.
Okay, so the idea of this is we want to do this not as fast as we possibly can, because we are rinsing the residual sugars from the grain that's remaining in the bag. So I'm going to use some silicone tube.
Yep.
All right. We're going to simply push that. That's the nice thing about these taps. This silicone tube simply just pushes on. We are now going to turn that on.
Great thing as well is with a tap of any sort, you can adjust the flow nicely, can't you?
Exactly. So we're going to get that running so that it's a proper flow. Then I'm going to turn the flow rate down, and I am going to jiggle, because we really want to, or would like to, get as much of this grain rinsed as possible. So there's various different methods of doing this. This is called fly sparging, as in we are sparging at the same time that we're dropping out of the mash tun. You can do what they call batch sparging as well, and there's calculators for that on our website. But basically the difference is you would completely empty the mash tun in one batch, then completely fill it back up, give it a real good stir, leave it for about another 10 minutes. You've then got to do your lautering again, and then you just drain it completely. Do you know what? It's as broad as it is long, and it's down to user choice. Sparge is done. Just the last little few bits just draining out there, so we can turn that off. We can remove our tubing from the tap here, and what we're going to do is just set our lid on very, very loosely across the top. We've got our boil kettle heating up now, and actually we can just leave this draining until we get to the boil point, or we've collected enough work. Now, one thing we've done is put the tap for this right in the corner, and we've done that for a reason, so that it's much easier. We can remove the bag and actually drain out the final dregs, because the tap doesn't go right to the very bottom.
There'll be a little bit of dead space, like there is in all kind of vessels like this. But like you say, the reason we put it in the corner just makes it easier to tilt it. We want to get all of that wonderful malty goodness out of the mash.
Let's get it boiling, and then we can do our later hop additions and see how that goes.
Awesome.
As you can see, we've had a little bit of move around of our brew house.
Only reason for that being really is for visual purposes for this video. If you were doing this at home, really you'd want to keep everything relatively fixed. But one of the big benefits of using this kind of system is, because it's all fairly lightweight, if you do need to move things around, like when we were tilting the mash tun, it's easy to do. Really easy to do, given that we need to think about safety first, because we are dealing with electrics and very hot sticky stuff. Quite a relatively large amount of hot sticky liquid, so we need to take safety into account. We are just about to add the hops to this, because we are almost up to boiling point. We're at about 95 degrees. Now, one of the benefits of all of our all grain recipe kits is that when you order them, firstly, they're packaged to order, they're processed to order, all the malt is crushed to order the day it gets shipped out to you, but you also get sent a handy brew sheet. Now, we've got a video on how to read a beer recipe, which I'll link up here, but on here it tells us everything we need to add throughout the process, mash temperatures, all that kind of stuff. And actually, for this recipe, for our bittering hops that are going to go in at the beginning of the boil, it's actually only 6 grams of Magnum we're going to be adding. I can't believe it's only 6 grams, but yeah, 6 grams, that's our bittering addition. Just to rewind there a second, the reason that we don't give all liquor volumes and temperatures and everything else on the brew sheet is simply because everyone brews in a different way, and our figures that we would be putting on the brew sheet would be right for one method of brewing, but if you're brewing a different method, it's totally different. So you're much better off, as customers, you are much better off learning exactly how to read a brew sheet so that you can brew any recipe you like, rather than following someone else's instructions, which might not be right for your system. Because you may end up coming up short on your volumes, you might come up with the wrong gravity at the end of the process. So do what works for you. If you're using an all-in-one system, a lot of them have dedicated platforms that you can use to build your recipes. We've got a handy calculator on our website if you are trying to work out those water volumes. There's loads of others available as well. Now, Rob's opening up the packet of bittering hops. Now, all your hops are weighed out for you as well as part of our recipes into individual bags by their Oh, that smells wonderful. Sorry, you're distracting me now. But they're weighed out individually by their hop variety. So you may not have a bag that's like hop edition 1, hop edition 2, hop edition 3, but you will have all the hops. So you just need to weigh out the right ones, and it's all documented on the brew sheets we ship. So hops are in, Rob.
Yeah, and what that helps to do is to break the surface tension. We don't want to boil over at this stage. So adding the hops now, it breaks the surface tension, allows it to roll over.
And get that hop break back into the beer, right?
Exactly that, and that is literally just this second happened.
Yeah, nice.
Nice. That's the end of our boil.
Yeah.
So we added our chiller about 10 minutes before the end of the boil. Yeast fit went in there and our protofloc went in there. We're done.
Yeah, we are. Next thing we need to do is we have a whirlpool edition for this, and it is 20 grams of Simcoe and 20 grams of Centennial. But to get the best out of those hops, because it's all about aroma and flavour at this point, not bitterness, we need to chill our wort down to 80 degrees. Now, we can't do that right here, so we're going to need to flip sides to where our running water is, and we'll be right back. Okay, Rob, we have chilled our wort, and we also added our whirlpool additions, the 20 grams each of Centennial and Simcoe, and we used our immersion chiller for that. It was super quick as well, wasn't it?
Well, so lucky at this time of year that the groundwater temperature is really super cold, so the immersion chillers are fantastically effective at this brew length.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what we need to do is transfer our wort into our fermenter, and to ferment this beer, we're going to be using one of the Chubbies from KegKing, right? Which we've used in previous brews. It's the perfect solution for this because we want to be really focused on low oxygen fermentation here, right?
Plus, we can use our ultra low density wrap to go round the Chubby to keep it nice and at yeast temperature.
Yeah.
The temperature that yeast really likes, so about 20 degrees whilst we're fermenting.
And the yeast we're going to be using for this is the Verdant strain from Lallemand. Now, it would make sense because it is Verdant's yeast that we're using this yeast. Actually, I've got lots of experience using this yeast. It's one of my personal favourites, so really looking forward to seeing how it performs throughout this fermentation.
Just to go back to when we were whirlpooling, so after we finished cooling this with the immersion cooler, we have given it a really, really good whirlpool, got the entire volume moving. Then you need a little bit of patience. So we've actually left this for about 20 minutes now. It's completely stopped moving. And when we drain it out, we're going to be draining out the clearest wort possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we should see at the end is a nice cone of all the trub and the hops gathering at the bottom of our kettle.
Exactly.
Nice. So next to you, we have some sanitizer because we need to sanitize our tap out, and also we've got a sanitized piece of transfer hose as well. Now, eagle-eyed viewers will notice it's the same piece of hose that we used when we were doing our sparge. Great thing with the hose barbs is that actually moving hoses around throughout the brew days, really simple and straightforward.
Yeah, piece of cake.
Rob, do you want to start opening up and transferring? Now, we want lots of splashing at this point. We want to get lots of oxygen in, don't we?
Yeah, we do. But for this first little bit that I'm going to transfer, perhaps the first litre or so, I'm going to do nice and gently, actually, because I just don't want to disrupt that cone too much just to start off with. I want to make sure that it's nice and set.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do the first little bit nice and gently. And actually, so often in brewing, whacking taps open really quickly is really not the way forward. It causes things to stick and block and
just too much disruption, right?
Just gently, yeah.
Now, we've already done a gravity reading on this beer using a refractometer. At this point, you might want to take a gravity reading using your hydrometer. Actually, we are really pleased with how we've performed. We were aiming for an original gravity of 1045, and guess what?
What have we got, James?
1045.
I know, yeah, that's great. And actually, the volume in here is going to be about bang on as well. So actually, we've done really well.
Yeah.
And as we can see, no hop filter on this whatsoever. You would never be able to do that if you were using whole cone hops. So this is a 100% pellet brew. The wort is absolutely coming out of there really clear, which is exactly what we want.
there we are, everything transferred. And as you predicted, Rob, in the bottom here, we have gathered all of the trub, all of the hops, and we've transferred the clearest work possible into the fermenter, which is amazing.
It is. Don't be tempted to tip the fermenter just to try to get another half a litre out. It's just simply not worth it. You're just transferring over hop material and break material. It's not worth it.
Yeah. So now it's on to pitching our yeast. Rob, do you want to start disassembling this for me? I've got our sachet of Verdant yeast here from Lallemand. I'm going to just cut the top off of there. Split that open. In we go. There we go. Now you've got the other components as well, Rob, to seal off the fermenter.
Sure.
And we're now going to be using a heat belt to keep this warm because it is a very chilly warehouse at the moment. And over the next few days, we should start to see fermentation kick off. And then towards the end of fermentation, we'll be thinking about our dry hop.
So this is a full-on grain to glass video. So make sure that you hang around and we're going to be checking out exactly how well this tastes against actual light bulb.
Yeah, we are, Rob. And also make sure you stick around till the end of the video where you can catch all the details on how you can win the setup we've used to brew this beer.
Jim, fast forward a couple of weeks. We've got a couple of beautiful cans here from Verdant. Actually, these were canned on the 11th of January. Super fresh. We're going to be trying our beer against these.
We are, Rob, and I can't wait to see how we've done with this brew against the real thing, and it doesn't get much fresher than that, right?
Just before we jump into this though, Jim, how did fermentation go?
Yes, absolutely spot on, Rob. The low watt density heat belt from Kegland that we used to keep the Chubby kind of warm worked an absolute treat. I mean, it's been very cold here, so we haven't really needed to worry too much about having a controller on it, but it was absolutely spot on. Fermentation was complete in about 7 days. Nice, lovely Krausen on the top, which you get with that Verdant yeast. Yeah. Really, really nice and creamy. I then dry hopped the beer with the remaining Simcoe and Centennial from the recipe kit. Added that in. Again, we left it for a couple of days. Then I transferred it into a keg, carbonated it, ready for us to try today. And I am very excited to see how we've done. I bet you are as well, right? Because I know you love this beer.
Yeah, I do. I do love the beer. I love the fact that it's highly hopped with that high mouthfeel that comes with that level of usage of hops. But it's a relatively low ABV drinking beer.
Yeah, it's really sessionable, and you know, I've drunk cans and cans and cans of this in my lifetime.
Yes,
our local pub sometimes has it on tap, so big fan of it. But I've also brewed this recipe a few times at home, so again, I'm keen to see how we got on using our kind of, you know, entry-level 3-vessel system to see whether we nailed it.
Yeah, it was great fun brewing on that. Having made the Mash Tun out of the cool box from the start, it's awesome.
Yeah, and brew day went really, really well. So again, really keen to see how this tastes. So shall we crack a can open, get some poured, and see how we get on?
Nice.
Here we go then. Right, we have the real thing on the inside and ours on the outside. Let's pick them up, Rob, and see how we've done. Now we're gonna, before we get our nose in there, let's take a look at colour. I hate to say it, but that is pretty blimmin' close, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, James. I actually, so when I poured the can out, I poured the one in your hand, I poured first. I then squealed the can and then poured the second glass, which is in my hand here. And actually, it might be difficult to pick up on camera, but these two are actually closer than your two.
Yeah.
But
only ever so slightly, right?
It is absolutely bang on. And we know with these hazy, cloudy beers, the photography behind them, it can show them being dull and what looks like oxidized, and it can also show them really brightly. And it's a really interesting thing. They are difficult. Bright hazy beers are difficult to photograph, but wowzer.
Yeah, I know.
That's like
spot on.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Right, I'm going to smell ours first. So your right hand, my left.
Yeah.
Oh, and that sort of heady combo of Centennial with the Simcoe is just,
yeah, it is nice.
Really good. Right, now I'm going to go in and give the Real Thing a smell. Oh, there's
So slightly more muted on the can.
okay, yeah. It might just be down to freshness, right? You know,
Yeah, I mean the can's absolutely super fresh, but obviously we only made ours.
what, not even 2 weeks ago.
No, exactly. Yeah.
It only went into the keg last weekend.
Yeah. So it's closer on the dry hop than the can would be as such.
But
Oh,
they're very similar, aren't they? Super similar.
Yeah, perhaps the real one's got, perhaps a bit more dank, and this one, our one's a bit more bright, as it were.
Yeah. And that can be just down to like the crop of hops that have been used, the harvest, you know, loads of different things.
Yeah.
Right, we've got to go in for a taste now. Start with ours.
Start with ours.
Cheers.
It's a good beer, James.
It's all right, isn't it?
It's a really good beer.
What I like about it is that, you know, it's got, obviously it is hot and it does have a reasonable amount of hops throughout the process, but it's not overbearing. It's not, you know, like 300 grams on the dry hop and 100 grams in the whirlpool. So you've got a nice balance there and the malt shines through and there's body to it as well, which is really, really good considering the ABV.
So we're looking at an ABV of
4.5. 4.5, yeah. So I'm going to go in for a try of the Real Thing now.
It's good down me.
You can have a little bit more of ours first.
Right, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's remarkably close.
Yeah. Like you said, that dankness maybe on the original is a little bit more prevalent in the mouth as well as on the aroma.
It is. It's slightly more pronounced, and I think that ours has a bit more. The bitterness is slightly harsher.
Yes. Now that may well be down to our water treatment.
Yeah.
We did a really basic water treatment on this because we were trying to do as basic brew day as possible. However, treating water is important even if you're just starting out. So we used sodium metabisulfate to remove chlorine. And then AMS, because we know roughly how much AMS we need to use in our water just to bring the alkalinity down. That was it. Now you could dial that in even further to be closer to the really soft water that they use down in Cornwall at Verdant's Brewery by using RO water or maybe getting one of the Murphy's water reports that we supply so that you can really dial it in even more accurately. However, they're really close.
Fantastic. Yeah. So we're looking at slightly, and we are talking
marginal things.
Very, very marginal differences. Slightly more dank, both on the nose, and the mouthfeel is slightly softer. Ours has a perceived bitterness of being slightly more carbonation on ours is bang on with the original.
Yeah,
you couldn't tell any difference there.
And what's great is that, you know, on our website you can obviously buy the recipe kit, but we sell the Verdant Lightbulb cans as well, so you can actually add a couple of cans to your order, compare them side by side like we are today to see just how close you can get to the Real Thing, which I love doing. You know, I'm a beer lover, not just a home brewer, so you've always got to have that inspiration of what you're aiming for and then being able to measure how you did against it.
Definitely. The head retention's about equal on both as well. I'm absolutely delighted with how that's turned out on a really basic setup, just proving that you can brew like amazing beer at home using simple setup.
Yeah, and really modern styles as well. You know, with modern hopping techniques, modern yeasts, you know, really advanced kind of methodology. You don't need a hugely expensive system. You can do it on a budget and you can absolutely nail it.
And actually, we haven't chosen a beer style to make that is a relatively easy beer style to make. This is tricky because of the oxygen contact and how easy you can go to all the time and effort of making the beer and then completely wreck it at packaging time or whatever. So That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Such an awesome experiment. I love it when we do these clone beers.
Yeah, me too, Rob. It's great fun. Like I said, Lightbulb is one of my favourite beers of all time, but being able to clone it in this way, it's really, really cool.
It's funny because we don't always hit it. But today that's been an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Really good fun. Now we need to come on to the good stuff, right? So if you have watched this whole video, you will know that you could be in with a chance of winning all of the equipment that we've used to brew this beer. Now, included in that prize bundle, you're going to have the HLT, plastic HLT with a 2.4 kilowatt element, the plastic boil kettle as well with another 2.4 kilowatt element.
We've also got the Mash Tun that we converted out the cool box.
Yep.
A Chubby for fermenting in. That includes the heat wrap.
Yes, yep.
The work cooler, a tap to serve your beer directly out of the Chubby, and a Spunding valve as well.
Oh, and also the grain bag that we used in the Mash Tun as well, right?
Yeah, and of course, a recipe kit so that you can actually brew the beer.
Yeah, we're going to put one of the Verdant Lightbulb kits in with this bundle as well. Now, to enter this, what you need to do is pretty simple, right? You need to be a resident of the UK because we need to be able to ship it to you. We want you to have made sure that you've liked the video, you're subscribed to our channel, and most importantly, you've left a comment below. Doesn't matter what that comment is. It could be, hey, your beer looks great. It could be, you like Rob's haircut. Whatever it is, put a comment down below and then we will pick somebody at random from the comments to win all of this prize haul from us.
Massive thanks for being part of this experiment with us. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, it has been really good fun.
And the fact that we can now give away this chance for someone to go off and do it themselves is brilliant.
Yeah.
Do make sure that you like our channel, you hit the bell for notifications, and of course you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.